When should you disclose to somebody that you have an incurable STD? Now, as you know, I love Twitter. I stay in these Twitter streets. And a couple of months ago, and I pulled this up just so I can remember, September is this back in September, so almost a month and change ago, right? There was a video that hit the timeline of this man who was HIV positive saying that he's entitled to condom-less sex, even if he has an STD, HIV to be specific, right? And I think I'll put the video in here so you can kind of hear some of his commentary in this video.
If I'm sucking dick, 9 times out of 10, there's no condom on it. If I'm eating ass, 9 times out of 10, there's no dental dam on it. If I'm getting my sucked, it ain't gonna have no condom on it. If I'm topping, there ain't gonna probably be no condom. If I'm bottoming, which rarely ever happens, if it does happen, probably not gonna use a condom, and I'm okay with that. I am HIV positive, and I am entitled to condomless sex.
And so this sparked obviously a lot of comments, a lot of retweets, a lot of quote tweeting, and I was reading some stuff, and then I finally asked the question that I think everyone was avoiding: when does a person with an incurable STD disclose to someone that they have an incurable STD? Question mark. In the talking stage, after a couple of dates, after they kiss, when? Reasonable question, I thought, because we all agree that you should disclose whether or not you have an STD before you have sex, or do we? Right? We mostly agree, hey, you should tell somebody if you have an incurable STD. Hell, even if you have a curable one. But if you are knowingly in possession of an STD or STI, they keep changing it back and forth, you should let the person that you are going to be sleeping with know, hey, I have herpes, I have syphilis, I have HIV, I have AIDS, before you have sex. But no one talks about when. Because the gap between the time you meet somebody and the time that you have sex with them, that's a lot of time. There are a lot of events that take place in the getting to know somebody. You have the talking stage, right? You have the first date that you go out on. You have the, potentially the second and third date that you go out with somebody. You have, kissing and making out. And then you have, the sex. So do you go through the talking stage without telling somebody that you have an incurable STD? See, this should be part of health class, I think, right? We learn about STDs, AIDS, and the way to prevent catching and stuff. No one has a class, at least in my sex class, we didn't give this information. Hey, if you do have an STD, when should you tell the other person? Now, when do I think you should tell? I'm going to get to that a little bit later in the video. Now, while I'm bringing this up, remember earlier that I said we all agree that you should disclose to somebody that you have an STD before you have sex? Apparently, that is not the case. Should I put her ad out there? At Mila Nanaj, or something like that. She had a tweet saying, so in response to my tweet saying, when should you disclose? She had a tweet saying, that's the thing. It's not up to y'all. That's up to them. And if and when they want to. Y'all have unlimited entitlement when it comes to people living with HIV when they are doing absolutely nothing to y'all. It's for you to speculate, and there is no right or wrong answer. In response, I said, wait, when you say that's up to them, are you saying they have no obligation to tell someone they are sleeping with about their status? And then she replied, people living with HIV know their status, so that means they're taking medication that makes them undetectable. And once you're undetectable, you can't pass the virus to any partners you may have, so there's really no reason to, quote, make them disclose more than anybody else. Now, the fact that people are out here with this thought process, let's start here. This is why you really have to be careful dating, having sex, because we all think everyone shares our sensibilities, and by me reading that little tweet exchange between me and this girl here, you can kind of see, oh yeah, that's not true. Right? That's not true. There are people with STDs who are not disclosing. They're not disclosing. And when you think about it, it actually isn't really that shocking if you just take a step back and say, let's start from her point about it's up to them and if and when they want to, as far as disclosing. I actually agree. The person who has the STD gets, they get to decide when they want to disclose their medical condition to somebody. You can't, and this is why the rest of us as the public, we should assume, that everyone has an STD. If I assume everyone has herpes, then I'm kind of operating in a way where I can't really get got because I've been operating as if everyone has herpes. So I'm always using protection as much as I can. When I fail, or if you fail, you immediately go get tested. Wait 3 months to get tested again. That's right. Some of y'all out here, you get tested after an exposure, but you don't wait the proper amount of time that you need to in order to actually check to see that you are safe. 3 months, people. 3 months. So I do that. Only have sex when the light's on. Okay? All of this whole making love and, with the lights off. Listen, the lights can be turned off after you do the body test. Right? Simple body test. And look, I get, people are like, oh, what's the body test, right? And yes, can you have an STD without any physical symptoms? Of course, right? Of course. So don't take this as, hey, if somebody looks clean, they are clean. That's idiotic. But we are in data collection mode, right? If you are here in these streets, and you're not in an exclusive relationship where you know for a fact that this person is, and you will never know, right? You will never know for a fact, but you are not pretty confident that this person is sleeping with you exclusively and you're sleeping with this person exclusively. If that is not your current arrangement, then we're kind of all playing, percentages here. And so wearing a condom helps you, increase your percentages of being safe. Not performing oral, that's another one, right? A lot of y'all will put that condom on when it comes to, penetration, but y'all be out here, eating punani and sucking dick with no condom on, which ain't really helping you. You can't get an STD via oral sex. So if you're not gonna be man enough or woman enough to say, hey, you know what, you might well just put that condom on before I, give you a blowjob, or if I get that that thing that dental dam, woman, so I can go down it. If you're not man enough or woman enough to do that, just skip oral altogether, right? That's another way that we can increase our percentages, right? Not performing oral. The body test is another one where the lights is on, as you are removing articles of clothing, you're using your eyes to look around the area. Are there any bumps here that shouldn't be here? Any abrasions, any open sores, right? Like, and you don't have to make it obvious, especially if you're a guy, your lights are on, you're taking off her clothes, you're kissing the neck, you're kissing her breast. And, as you go down and you begin to remove articles below the belt, right? You just, before you stop the kissing and you just roll down and you just take a look to see, okay, right? I see what's going on here. And if there's something that looks out of place, you have to have the fortitude to put a stop to it altogether. Right? A lot of you guys are very afraid to put the brakes on something once it's started because you don't want to make the other person look awkward. You don't want to make the situation weird. If you get a weird vibe, if something don't look right, you got to go. Right? So these are things that we can do to kind of increase our percentage to prevent us from catching an STD if we assume that everybody has an STD, which is what I do. But I agree with her first point that, no, the person with the STD, they get to decide when they want to disclose or not, right? Because it's their medical history. But when she gets into the second point where she says people living with HIV know their status, so that means they're taking medication, I don't think that's true. Do I think most people with HIV take medication? Yes. Why? It's self-serving. I want to live. Most of the medication we have today is very effective. And so, yes, I agree, A to B, most people with HIV, they take medications that are very effective and make them undetectable. But it's not everybody. Some people will get caught in self-denial. They'll go to the doctor for something, or they'll go get an STD test, expecting to pass with flying colors, and it comes back saying that they're positive for something, and they're just in a state of denial so much that they don't want to get medications. Some people are just anti-medicine, right? And so they don't want to take medications for some reason. Who knows? Assuming everyone who knows their HIV status is taking medication, I think is wishful thinking. But she's probably right that most do. But here's my second point of contention. These medications are only as effective as user error. Think about birth control. It's very, very effective, birth control, right? You hear all the time, taking a pill, it's like 99% effective, or 95% effective. That's when it's used properly. And what does properly mean? You have to take the pill every day. You have to take the pill at the same time every day, and you can't miss not one. If you deviate from any of those three things, that percentage of 99% or 95%, it goes down. It's the same thing with these daily medications or weekly medications, right? Yeah, they are extremely effective as long as you're using them the way they're supposed to be used, taking the pills as you should, however often you should be taking them, right? But what if they don't? User error is a real thing. It's a big thing. There's also medicine interaction, right? Somebody could be taking one of these medicines for HIV. Later down the line, they get diagnosed with something else, some condition, they get prescribed another medication, and they weren't informed properly how this medication makes the HIV medication less effective, and now you're vulnerable. All of these are valid possibilities, valid scenarios, at least I think, in which, hey, you can end up in a situation where somebody with HIV who, they think they can't pass it to you because they're responsible, but they don't do, certain things, and now you have been exposed. So I think you do have an obligation to tell. But then the question is, when should you tell? So I disagree with this woman here, but when do I think you should tell somebody? I think you should tell someone after the first date. Which sounds crazy, I know. Wait, you want me to tell somebody my medical business after the first date? I think this helps everybody involved. You can't tell them after the talking stages, because I do think you'll freak people out. If you're a man and you tell a woman that, hey, I want you to know I have an STD, or I have herpes, or HIV, any of these incurable STDs, they might assume, whoa, buddy, like, who said I was going to have sex with you, right? So you might turn her off by even bringing that status up. And so you don't want to do it in the talking stage, right? And also, and this is unfortunate, this is fucked up, but I have to say it. I think our culture is so immature when it comes to, sexual health, that you do kind of have to rope somebody in a little bit to give yourself a fair shake if you have an STD. Unfortunately, part of the reason why so many people don't disclose their STD status is due to the fact that our culture has such a stigma on people who have STDs, because we kind of view it as a moral failing. If you think about it, it's not true. Your sexual health, unless you are using condoms all the time, every time, and even then, you forget there's the skin-to-skin contact STDs like herpes, like, syphilis, I think, is skin-to-skin contact as well, right? Like, if you're just talking about the, vaginal or orally transmitted, STDs where you have to have sex, outside of you using condoms every single time, you're kind of playing a Russian roulette game with sexual health. There are people out there who have had sex with 5, 10, 15 people and have never had an STD. Incurable or curable. And then you have people out there that have been with 3 or 4 people and they caught a bad break and they got one of those incurable STDs. Am I saying that your behavior has no indication on the likelihood that you get an STD? Of course not. The more sex that you have and the higher your partner count is, it increases the probability that you will catch an STD. That is true. However, there is also an element of just like randomness and luck that comes into this conversation as well. And no one talks about it. Our culture still views, STD, dirty. STD, promiscuous. It makes people ashamed to reveal their status. So when I said before that you have to rope somebody in a little bit in order for you to have a fair shake if you have an STD, it's to kind of combat that culture. You want somebody to be a little bit invested in you. Oh, he's a good guy. She's a great woman, good qualities, in school, smart, no kids, whatever, beautiful, handsome, and then you reveal it's gonna be a shock to that person. But now they have to have a conversation with themselves on, hey, this amazing person that I'm talking to, is this STD enough to disqualify this person as a potential life partner for me? And so I think waiting after that talking stage puts you in a good spot, if you are a decent person, for you to get at least as fair of a shake as you can get given your condition if you wait after your first date. If you wait till date number 2, I think the other person might feel like you were being dishonest with them. They're not going to view it through the lens of, oh my God, it was probably really hard for this person to, confess that they have this STD. That's not how they're going to look at it. They're going to look at it as you were trying to kind of weasel your way into them falling for you before you spring it on them, right? It's kind of like women who complain about guys that don't tell them that they have kids. And then, once they invest it, oh, by the way, baby, I just want you to know that, I got 2 8-year-olds. Ain't gonna work. So if you wait until date number 2, you run the risk of this person being angry at you. And I don't even have to go into why it's a bad idea to wait until right before sex is gonna happen. I don't know anybody who would continue to see someone who waited literally until right before they assume sex was coming, right? Like right after she gives you that, hey, you want to come over text? If you want to give that person the heads up at that moment, hey, by the way, I got AIDS, but I'm coming right now. You're done. No self-respecting person. If I had an incurable STD, I wouldn't even want to have sex with somebody who would take me after I disclose right before the get down was supposed to happen. No. So that's my answer. After the first date. But once again, let this video let you know there are people walking around with STDs who they have no intention of telling you jack.